I was a prodigy.
This is how a fortune teller saved my life. One night after work, my friend Abby and I decided to go out and grab a drink. On the way, Abby noticed a little hole in the wall business that had a sign out front that said psychic readings. Abby's always doing spontaneous and super random things, so of course she pulled over as soon as she saw it and insisted that we go in. I was apprehensive at first, but she talked me into it. I never believed in this sort of thing, but I figured I'd go in to make Abby happy. As we walked in, we were greeted by a very old woman that reeked of cheap perfume. She brought us to the back room where I noticed 3 or 4 cats lounging about. She read Abby's palm first and told her a super generic fortune that sounded like she got it off of Google Daily Horoscopes. I couldn't help but to scoff. When it was my turn, she grabbed my hand and began reading my palm. She seemed to be taking forever with my reading. Then she looked up at me with a worried look, gripped my hand so hard that it hurt, and said, "You will receive something that doesn't belong to you in the coming months. It will be wet. Stay at a friend or family member's house that day, dear." I gave her a strange look, and we left and went on with our night. Little did I know this piece of information would end up saving my life. Part 2 of how a fortune teller saved my life. Months went by since I saw the fortune teller. I never gave what she said a second thought. One morning I woke up and went to go check the mail. There was a package on my doorstep, but I hadn't ordered anything recently. There was a bad storm that day, and the package was soaked. After taking it inside, I noticed that the package wasn't mine and it had been delivered to the wrong address. This is when it clicked in my head, and I remembered what the crazy old fortune teller lady had told me. I'll receive something that isn't mine, it'll be wet, stay at a friend's house that night. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little freaked out. I thought to myself it was probably a coincidence and that packages get delivered to the wrong address all the time. But what she said stayed in the back of my mind all day. I decided to stay at my sister's house that night just to be safe. I went over to her house in the storm and we had a much needed girls' night. The next morning I went home and I was shocked. Sometime last night during the storm, the large tree in my front yard had fallen on my house right on top of my bedroom. It completely broke through the roof, destroying my room and the hall. I got back in my car and drove to the fortune teller's business to thank her. When I got there, her business had been closed down and she was nowhere to be found. To this day, I still believe that her warning saved my life.
Storytime. My date doesn't pay her bill. I get to the restaurant 10 minutes early and she's already there eating appetizers. Then she goes ahead and orders the most expensive dinner on the menu and tells me that she did it because she knows that I'm paying. Small talk fails, and for 45 minutes she complains about how no one is refilling her wine glass. She mentions how she was told that I make a decent salary multiple times. I try to be civil and change the subject. Awkward conversational topics ensue, nothing even close to first date etiquette follows. 3/4 of the way through, I go to the bathroom and our waiter walks by, asking me if we're doing a reality show or something along those lines, since he has seen this disaster in motion. We talk about how wild this woman is for about 5 minutes, and then I ask him to stop at our table and ask about the bill. I immediately say split checks and give him $80, roughly 40 for my bill and 40 for his tip. The date looked shocked and ended up not being able to pay her bill, so the friend who hooked us up got a call and flipped the rest of her check. Her total came out to be about $75. Was I wrong for this? Or should she have paid? Story time. Accidental murder on a first date. I met a girl in a college class and noticed she was looking at golf clubs on eBay. Being a golfer myself, I figured it was a perfect conversation starter and went with it. After an exchange of numbers and some conversation, we had a golf date at a local country club for the next afternoon. The first few holes went well, but then the 7th hole happened. I'm about 230 yards away from the green, so I pull out my wedge. I see the pair of sandhill cranes that were about 150 yards down the fairway, so I paid them no attention. I take my swing, and to my surprise, the ball was a low-line drive that got no more than a few feet off the ground. And to my surprise, one of the birds was in the way of the ball. It was a direct hit to the neck, and the bird went down for good. Sandhill cranes mate for life, so if one of them dies, the other will sit there for hours crying for the other one. It was sad, but little did I know she loved these birds, and the look on her face was horrific. She broke down in tears. We played the last 2 holes with maybe exchanging 10 words. Didn't hear from... Story time. Ignore my girlfriend's request for me to come over immediately. Every Saturday morning, my friends and I meet up to play soccer. This morning, while we were in the middle of a game with some other groups of guys, my girlfriend called me because she got a visit from a few of her friends who she told me about, and she asked that I come over immediately because her friends wanted to meet me. She lives about an hour away from the park where we play. I told her I'd be over as soon as the game ended, within a half hour. She said nothing and ended the phone call. After the game ended, I immediately showered and went over to her house. I even skipped the breakfast we normally have together after the game. When I got there, her friends had already left, and she gave me the silent treatment. I apologized profusely and offered to invite her and her friends to lunch in town. She still ignored me, and that annoyed me. I told her I didn't know why she's mad at me, but when she's ready to act her age and use words to explain how she's feeling, she knows where to reach me. I also added that lunch offer still stood until 2:30 when I have to go visit my brother and his wife. Am I wrong? Was I wrong for not going over immediately? Story time. Am I wrong for not sending my friend my work? I'm in college in the UK studying engineering. It's not the easiest, but it's definitely manageable. Every time we get a new assignment, my friend asks for my work. Every single time. I mean, he's a nice guy, but he's not the brightest person out there. We're doing a math module at the moment, and he really needs to pass this module to get into university. But he's just hopeless. He never takes the time to do the assignments, and he just leeches off of everyone at every chance that he can get. His grades in other courses aren't great, but this is by far his worst grade. I'm fed up of sending him my work. I'm literally carrying him to university. So am I wrong if I stop sending him my work? Or should I try to help my friend get into university and figure his life out?
Me and my wife are in our early 30s, and we've been trying to have a baby for several years now. Unfortunately, she is probably unable to get pregnant. We've run several tests, and it's only hers that come back with bad news. Additionally, I've accidentally gotten a girl pregnant a few years before I met my wife, who ended up having an abortion, so I know that it can't be me with the fertility issues. I don't blame my wife at all. In fact, I'm excited to talk to her about other options such as adoption or surrogacy. I love my wife so much that I would want to raise children together even if they're not biological. I was on the phone with my wife's mother the other day. She started saying unusual things. She said it was okay that I couldn't have kids, or maybe we could find a sperm donor for my wife, and she knew that I'd be a good dad even if the kids weren't related to me. I was confused. I told my mother-in-law that it was my wife who was having the fertility issues, not me. I'm sure it was a harmless misunderstanding, so I talked about it with my wife and she got really mad at me. She said it was her mom and I should have just went along with it because she always wants to be seen as good and capable in her mother's eyes. So am I wrong for sharing personal information with my mother-in-law? Much room for teasing and bullying in the future. I told him it's not our place as friends, but he thinks we're being assholes for not mentioning it to our friend. The parents-to-be, they scrambled their name and rearranged it to make it the baby's name. So it's not like the baby's name was a family name or anything. Would I be the asshole if I didn't say anything about teasing or bullying possibilities to my expecting friends? Should I say anything at all? My boyfriend and I are 18 and 35 weeks pregnant with our daughter. Since the day I found out we were having a girl, he was hell-bent on naming her Renee Esme, absolutely refusing to compromise. He's a massive Twilight fan, and I personally hate it and would much rather that we don't name our baby after a fictional character. It kind of hit a boiling point last night. For weeks I've been telling him we're coming up with something different because I'm not naming my child that. So later I go onto Instagram and I see that he posted a picture of both of us, and in the caption he wrote, "I can't wait to meet you, Renee Esme." I got really mad at this. I told him to delete it or change the caption because I'm not naming our daughter that. He refused, saying that his friends now know about it and we have to stick with it. And I said, I haven't agreed to naming our daughter after some stupid made-up character from the worst book ever made. Delete it now or get out of my house. He left to spend the night at a friend's house, and my parents, who heard the argument, said I should just let him name our daughter that, saying it probably means a lot to him and that I'm being unreasonable. So am I the one that's wrong here?